What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Long Play Listening Party, the show where we go deep on local music, writing, recording, inspiration, gear, and whatever else sounds good to us. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. Nate Holt, Astrali's Music, my co-host. What's going on, my friend?
What is up, everyone?
We are joined tonight by Serene Fiend, including Joel. Joel, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
And return guest Daniel. What's up, Daniel?
What's happening?
Well, we are about to listen to your outstanding new album. How about that?
Woo!
I'm into that.
So, Elegies and Effigies coming out on August 25th. That'll be tomorrow, potentially, when this episode goes up. So that's exciting. A little preview here. And then we'll have part 2 for you next week. Just to get us started, Joel, tell us maybe how you got started in music, maybe all the way back to childhood if you want.
Yeah.
And lead us up to, starting Serene Fiend and Elegies and Effigies in particular.
Man,
like from the very beginning. So you're like...
Conceived,
right?
Then,
Yes.
The toy piano you had when you were 4, and then
Fisher-Price.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have synesthesia from their Fisher-Price xylophone? Because that's what I have. The colors match.
Whoa. That's crazy. That's awesome.
hey, I had it from a Casio.
My any synesthesia I have is more like texture and like feel. I don't really get color or shape or anything. But yeah. So I started the first music that I got into playing wise. I started playing violin in 2nd grade, took private lessons, and that track extended until my freshman year of college. I took violin lessons forever. And I grew to not really appreciate it after a long time. I got pretty tired of it, and my parents they very much encouraged me to stick with it, which now I understand why. It paid off a lot. I don't think it paid off in the ways that they thought it would.
were you good? Did you compete or anything?
I definitely was a very competent player. Yeah. Like I took it seriously, and I had a feel. But you start doing that in elementary school, and it exists as one thing in your life at that point. And then I get into middle school, I get into high school, and my interests start changing. And in middle school in 7th grade, I asked for a bass guitar for my birthday, and my parents got it for me, and I started playing it. And it's funny because the whole reason I wanted to play bass is because everyone else was playing guitar at the time. And I was like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to play bass. And then, 6 months later, I was saving up money to buy a guitar because I was, tired of the bass. So I picked up guitar less than a year after picking up bass. And then that was kind of just the never looking back moment. I was just consuming music constantly and learning how to play everything by ear. And then I found tabs and started learning all my favorite songs. I was, growing up, my dad introduced me to U2. So I've been a huge U2 fan my entire life. I found Kiss and I found Slipknot pretty simultaneously. So I was learning how to play those songs on guitar as a kid. And then it just kept developing, and I kept getting more interests and looking up to different artists. I found John 5, who's now one of my absolute most monumental guitar players, and I started learning how to play country swing because of him. So I took a huge left turn into all of that, and just honing my chops as a guitar player. And in late high school, I started a death metal band called Hymn of Atrophy. And we played for a few years, and
That's a great name.
Thanks. That was one of those that popped into the shower, popped in my head during the shower names. And we played for a couple years, and I kind of cut my teeth into like what it meant to be a performing musician locally. We made home. I don't know if any of you remember Duffy's in the Econo Lodge on 6th Street. We played there all the time. That was the place. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's covered up by my keyboard right here. A friend of mine a few Christmases ago made me a replica of the Duffy's sign in the hallway there. Yeah, because we found a picture of it I went back on the old Hymn of Atrophy MySpace page, and I found a photo of their sign, and I was like, dude, look at this. And he surprised me with a replica of it. He's a sweetheart. So yeah, we did the death metal thing. That band dissolved. Then I joined a funk band in college called Sharp 9, and that's when I really, really, really got put through.
Sharp 9, baby.
Yeah, put through my paces of guitar playing, because I went from being this like metal kid who was kind of interested in country music to like having to play funk music and jazz inspired music, and I was having to basically just learn on the fly the entire time. And I developed a lot as a musician in that time frame, and had a ton of fun with that band, and made so many great connections in the scene through that band. Then we dissolved. I started another band called Joel Bonner and the Bootstompers, which was my full-on like rockabilly country effort, just like gunslinger guitar playing kind of stuff. Did a few years of that, and then I just kept developing my interest, kept moving forward, and synthesizers came into the picture. I'd had a drum machine for years that I just used as a writing tool, and it just kind of started. I was like getting into Nine Inch Nails and getting into all these like industrial bands, and it just kind of all started to coalesce into what became Serene Fiend eventually. And I just put out that first Serene Fiend EP, and I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but this feels right. And then I had such a immediate and fervent reaction to that EP, much more than anything I'd ever done in my life. So I was like, okay, well, this is the vibe. This is it. And then it just kept developing, and Serene Fiend's become definitely the purest distillation of my taste of anything I've done, I think.
Good deal.
So it exists in how do you think of Serene Fiend? Because there's like elements of kind of solo project. There's a live band, of course. And
I'm going to start the first track called Monument to Non-Existence, just because you asked that question, Howie.
Yeah, perfect. But I just want to ask, and I'll limit my question to the creation of Elegies and Effigies, but like, how do you think of Serene Fiend in terms of kind of membership, and what is it?
Yeah, it's somewhat nebulous, but the recording side of it and how it's represented in recorded audio is pretty much just like my baby. And it's a expression of me as a recording artist and an audio engineer. I spent so many years working with collaboratively with other musicians, and that's all I ever did. And there were certain trappings that came with that I was getting tired of. And so the recording aspect of Serene Fiend was my way of doing things on my own time, how I wanted, and having full control. And then Elegies and Effigies comes around, and Daniel has a contribution on this album. Sam, our live guitar player, has a contribution on this album. Bringing the guys into the fold a little bit, but I don't have a predetermined idea of exactly where that path is going. It's just what feels right, and the live aspect of it is completely me surrendering all of that to Sam, Daniel, and now Travis for this upcoming album release show, playing drums, because they have such incredible voices as musicians. I don't want the live stuff to sound like the recordings, and that is where they shine.
I didn't realize that the live band was Usual plus Hypermortal, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, basically.
It worked out.
Daniel?
And a really fun fact, real quick, the really fun fact about this song, I referenced Hymn of Atrophy earlier. This was a demo of a Hymn of Atrophy song I wrote in 2009. The skeleton of this song Teenage Joel wrote, and then I unearthed it from my music library and reappropriated it for Serene Fiend.
I love that. I was just gonna ask Daniel. I mean, I imagine there's something in there you can identify with. Because I mean, you have projects where you have total control. You do it all exactly how you want. You've also got multiple collaborations. So you must find something productive in the back and forth among those things.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, I try and compartmentalize as best as I can. I took the opportunity with Joel because I opened for his, I think it was the first Serene Fiend show.
It was the first show, yeah.
And we, I mean, obviously hit it off. And he's afforded me an opportunity to do live synthesis that I was looking for, like by myself, just playing drum machines and keyboards and stuff. It's a headache, and there's not a whole lot of kinetic energy to the thing. It's just standing around with keyboards. And with him, it's like punk synth for me. And I've relished that opportunity really because, yeah, I sometimes I want to give up control. You know what I mean? Like, it's less of a hassle whenever you got somebody else guiding you and leading you. And it's pushed my synthesis abilities into way different terrain because it's like I just approximate what he's done as the best I can and then try and make it as expressive as he made the album, you know?
So, Joel, I don't want to interrupt this lead. So you produced everything on this record, correct?
Yeah, everything was a synth solo in the next song that Daniel did, and then a guitar solo in the following song that Sam did, but everything else is me, yeah.
So what did you use for that lead and that kind of like arpeggiated stuff?
So I MIDI sequenced the lead and ran it through my MS-20.
Okay.
And I did like 3 passes of that, of moving the filter and changing the octave, and then I layered all of that together. So that's really the same lead happening 3 times at once, just like layering it. Yeah.
Right.
That
sounds so good.
Man,
I saw that MS-20 back there, and I'm a huge MS-20 fan.
I adore the MS-20, man. It's such an essential tool in my rig.
So I don't want to hijack this the show, and I'm not going to. But when this posts in late August, I'll be a week or 2 away from digitally releasing the equivalent of a 6 LP MS-20 project.
Cool. Let's go. I will hotly anticipate that.
We can move on, but it's called Only Mostly Dead. It'll be on nightmode.bandcamp.com in late August. And we won't be covering it on the podcast because it's too long.
Sick.
What, there's not going to be a 27 episode?
There will not be.
Covering that one?
We're going to spare the listeners that. If you're the kind of person who will enjoy that, you can seek it out.
Man, so yeah, Joel, I see you posting stuff, often, and so I know you love your MS-20, and then you've got tell me
the other really essential one in my rig is a Korg mini log.
Yes.
That's my live synth these days because it has presets. But it's pretty essential in the recordings in the studio as well. They're my 2 main tools, and on this album, my repertoire expanded. Daniel gifted me a Behringer Neutron a while back, and that has an appearance on this record. And I have a Moog DFAM that I love, but it only has 1 line in this entire album, unfortunately. So we're looking forward to
sometimes that's the way it is,
Yeah, in the future, that DFAM's going to get some serious work.
Is that what's behind you, or is that like one of those little Roland?
This is just a little Arturia key step, just a MIDI controller that I can also do some CV routing in.
Is there a module behind it though?
There's the DFAM and then the neutron
DFAM,
just
okay.
behind it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
And some pedals right there too.
Yep.
And then this is my solo. Also, with the exception of the first track, there are no amps on this album. This is all DI guitar.
Nice.
And then this is Daniel's solo. Making those fingers fly.
All right, when we get to the last chorus, I want to listen to it, and I will have already, by the time you hear this, edited an earlier chorus so you can hear it cleanly.
So what about the drums on the record, Joel?
The proper drums come from a huge library of samples I've accrued over the years, and some from my Alesis SR18. But all of the auxiliary percussion, especially I can highlight it as we go into Don't Want to Die here, that is all stuff that I recorded myself and sampled myself. So hitting cooking sheets with chains and baseball bats and stuff. I have tons of proper industrial sampling on this album.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, the reason I wanted to hear those two choruses because that last chorus, it goes to a whole nother harmonic place, and there's this whole set of chords floating over the top of the riff that only happen in the last chorus, and I love those so much.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm huge in developing musical ideas, and each chorus needs to have some kind of expansion to it, to contextualize it and add depth to the song. Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that, because it's not the most obvious thing in the world, but it's definitely a very, very dedicated layer in that last chorus.
I've always had because I've never felt like my drum programming was all that great, and approach, he was just he's like, dude, the thing with drums, man, you just keep them moving. He's just make them interesting to you,
Yeah.
Even if it's the slightest change, if it changes the feel slightly, that's what the point is. So I've kept that kind of ethos, when I program drums and expands to other instruments too. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean,
don't give people everything all at once, But when it's appropriate, it can just make everything so huge and impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great advice. I think this song in particular was kind of an interesting example of drum programming for me. It's a very syncopated and complex drum sequence that just kind of happened after experimenting and sequencing over and over again. And thankfully, we've got an extraordinarily talented drummer for this album release show who can replicate this drum sequence flawlessly. It sounds so good in rehearsal right now.
Well, that you probably think about that, or maybe not. How much do you think about incorporating a live drummer when you're programming drums? Are you thinking okay, this is how they're gonna play it, or this is how they're gonna want to play it, or are you just kind of
So when I'm recording, I have no respect for the live performance whatsoever. The recording is the recording. But when I think about drum parts, especially if the sampling I'm using is more traditional, typical trap style drums, I will try to keep in mind, if someone were to play this, I want to make sure that each limb is capable of doing what you're hearing.
Right.
Even if the pattern is like insanely complex that only some hyper drum nerd would be able to play, I want it to be replicatable, you know. But if it's just like some crazy electronic song, then sky's the limit. I don't care. We'll figure it out later.
Right.
But then you went out and found the one like hyper drum nerd that could do it all.
Yep. Dude, Travis just he just knew how to play that. It was insane.
Does he use any sampling or any like pads or anything?
In this performance specifically, no. We talked about it, but we decided to forego all the pads and the sampling, and he's just
simplify it.
Yeah, he's just doing it completely with his live kit. He has a couple of little peripherals that he like puts on his kit just to do very specific sounds for like one song, but there's no electronics in his kit.
Yeah.
When it comes to live setups, the simpler the better, obviously.
Yeah, if we were doing theater level tours or something, it's one thing, but playing the
Not
games
any sort of money at all, so you can fucking just concentrate on that.
Yeah.
Somebody else is loading the gear in.
Yeah,
that's whenever you can make it more complicated.
Right. Dude, Joe, I mean, I love the Sonics on this record, man.
Thank you.
From the heaviness that we were hearing earlier, I mean, I know it's starting to intensify a little bit, but like, dude, I love the sort of the percussion that's going on in the background. The pads and everything are very soft, but it's still got this kind of emotional.
Everything
real good.
Everything is a vibe for me. Composition is capturing emotion and vibe, and I try to think about how the music is listened to just as much as how I write it and stuff, because it's only as good as when it hits your listener.
Right.
So I try to really make sure things have emotional content every step of the way as best I can. This is a great MS-20 line right here.
Yeah. You guys gonna make me get an MS-20.
Yeah, man.
What's wrong with that? So
Nothing.
Is the Sonic Fingerprint? I mean, talk about the relationship between the Sonic Fingerprint, because this record definitely has one. There's a high end. There's an aggressive high end. It's not always there, right, Nate? There's some soft parts and stuff, but like there's an aggressive high end that we come back to at different times. There's the percussion element that kind of ties things together. Talk about the relationship between the Sonic Fingerprint and that emotion that you're capturing.
I mean, I guess it sort of comes back to like the very beginning of our discussion when we were talking about synesthesia. Like, texture is the thing that really resonates with me a lot, and texture has a very intense emotional component to it for me. So when you're writing parts that they take up this part of the frequency spectrum, like the high end of the frequency spectrum. A guitar does that in a specific way, a synthesizer does that in a specific way, and different synthesizers do that in different ways. And then the notes that you write in that register will color that a specific way. And I think some of the keys that I've hit, especially on Manufactured, this song, is establishing that frequency range, whatever focus it is, and then taking it away and then bringing it back, but it's a different timbre, that helps develop the emotion of the composition. You're getting familiar sounds, but they're different each time, and they're developing as the song goes along. And then I think like dynamicism in music and note selection goes so far for texture and the overall emotional quality of the composition too. And then I just like color it with purple and black and skulls and leather and fishnets, and I tell everyone, visually that it has this kind of mood too,
Right.
The aesthetics are very important as well.
I'm very comfortable comparing like stuff like this to, some of the emotional stuff that like the Nine Inch Nails, that you'll get from them.
Yeah.
And then also comparing some of the heavier stuff to some of their heavier stuff, just the, the baldiness, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Man, and I didn't find, this is so embarrassing to admit always, I didn't find Nine Inch Nails until like 2015. And I literally, it was like, I didn't know this existed and I didn't know I needed this so bad. It was like a revelation listening to Nine Inch Nails. So you can hear that in my compositions.
No, it's beautiful, dude.
Thank you.
That right there is just gorgeous.
Thank you. And it's all about those kind of out of tune, soft pianos and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the fourth track. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to keep Howie informed and us on track. So that was the fourth track, and there's 8 tracks on this album. Did we want to keep going, or?
Well, we'll save the rest of the tracks for the next episode.
Right.
But before we break, is there anything from the first 4 that we haven't touched on that Daniel, maybe listening back to it and hearing what Joel's said so far, I imagine you probably know a lot of this, maybe a little bit is new to you. What strikes you as a listener?
So for the entire album is comprised of various leitmotifs that Joel is sort of like cascading over each other, and like that part makes it fairly cinematic. It's obviously, as maybe outmoded or archaic as a concept album is these days. I know,
I like that.
I'm not using it as, I'm not criticizing with it or anything.
Right.
It's just that a lot of the world has moved on to just like immediately digestible content.
Yeah,
exactly, the attention span thing. And that's something that I really cherish about the project in general, is the fact that it does require you to sit down and go into a meditative space with it, engage with it as an overall art piece, and not just as a I guess you could take one of these tracks out of context and put it in whatever context you want to, but the atmosphere is established concordant to the rising levels of each idea moving over itself, and a lot of Joel's textural explorations in there. The musical ideas, thankfully, are simple in parts enough for me to just immediately latch onto them. The hardest part in the live set has been to approximate what's been going on in the record texturally, atmospherically. That isn't, just okay, I got to turn a reverb pedal on here and that'll make atmosphere. That's been the biggest challenge in bringing it to a live sphere, because there's so many layers. It's so it's a really deep album when you actually sit down and listen to it. So that's as much as I got to say about it.
I don't think
you guys should be I will fully say I guess the timing of this episode, the release show will be on the 27th, so very soon after this drops. Daniel has some really incredible reinterpretations of some of those motifs, and even presented a suggestion of how we can incorporate a snippet of a song into another song, because the album has so many motifs in it that overlap and repeat and develop throughout the album, that we were able to just like reference another song inside of one of the songs in this set that we're doing. Which is,
and not just because it's in the same key.
Yeah, right.
Because it fits.
Right.
Plus, Daniel, I'm pretty sure you know how to transpose something if you need to. So,
if I had to, but luckily I didn't.
Well, dude, I enjoy live shows being different than the record. I mean, and it depends. Obviously, it depends on the material and everything. But I mean, it's something that is just another something that keeps something stand out, keeps it unique, fresh. Gives people a reason to like want to check you out. And
actually go to the show.
Yeah,
where you could sit at home safely listening on headphones.
Right.
Yeah,
not disturbing the neighbors.
And that was a hurdle that I wanted to jump over really early on, because we didn't have a drummer, and we were playing to tracks for the drums, and there were even some like auxiliary synth parts in the tracks. But like that's why like having Daniel and Sam, who have such specific voices as artists, involved, was because they can take those parts and not make them sound like the album, and defy the fact that we were playing to tracks enough that it was in and of itself a unique experience separate from the album. And
for sure.
we were afforded, the incredible opportunity to have Travis play for us for this release show. So we're going to be completely off tracks, completely going live band, the entire every beat of the set, and it's going to be the final like fulfillment of all of that.
It's going to be great. And then that's the 27th, right?
Yep. 27th at Replay. We're doing a evening patio show starting at 9:00.
Hell yes.
With friends of the pod, Ebony Tusks and Young Machetes.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Big one.
That is going to be.
The whole night's going to be in your face. I have been waiting to present a show opportunity worth Ebony Tusks and Young Machete's attention, and thankfully, as soon as I reached out to them, they were on board like immediately. So it's just everything aligned for this show.
It's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so all the links in the show notes and everything, but that's on August 27th. Album comes out August 25th. Elegies and Effigies at serenefiend.bandcamp.com. Joel, Daniel, thanks for being here. We'll be back with part 2. Listeners on Monday following the release show. But for now, this has been the Long Play Listening Party. Later, everybody.
See ya.
Wow.